guys sing about getting high with a little goat?
You know, it was the
We're talking
Beatles.
high on life. Spiritual.
Exactly. And I'm not one to edit the Beatles. It is what it is.
Just needed to clarify that.
Interestingly, I did ask Holly about that, and she says, no, it's all about your friends lifting you up.
Good morning and happy 2nd of July. We're getting real close. The 4th is just around the corner. And we're talking about true freedom today. Yeah, I heard about a daycare instructor who was teaching for little charges about patriotism on the 4th of July. She was telling these little tykes, we live in a great country. One of the things we should be happy for is that in this country, we're free. And in the back of the classroom, a little guy stood up with his hands on his hips and he said, I'm not free, I'm for. One of those complicated multitasking things, breathing and talking at the same time. Bear with me. This week, we are all very, very focused on freedom. And it's an innate concept to all human beings. If you study your history, thank you for the history lesson this morning, John. I haven't heard that for a long time. That was moving and inspiring. Across time, every culture, every people, freedom has been a goal. And to us spiritual seekers, this would indicate that freedom is our natural state of being. In fact, in 2 Corinthians we read, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. But is freedom only about governments and laws, about politics? I suggest to you that true freedom starts from within. Listen to this. When we are enlightened, we do not react, we act. Free from self-destructive behavior patterns, beliefs, and judgments, we act. Creating flawlessly from the direct perception of the need of the moment. This is freedom. This is impeccably correct action. This is life in the present instant. The mind is no longer caught by regret for the past or worry about the future. There is a way of living your life that can generate the continual experience of joy, brilliance, creativity, health, and love. This is true freedom. How does that sound to you? Freedom is a mindset. Freedom is a choice. We'll be exploring this a little later today as we look at the film A Mindful Choice. And I know some of you have seen it before. If you've missed it following the service, you'll have the opportunity to see it again. The movie explores the transformative, freeing results of a meditation process called Ascension. And one of the groups of people that have explored this are a group of prisoners in a maximum security facility. Even though they are incarcerated, they have discovered in Ascension meditation a freedom that they have never known before. Freedom of choice, freedom of mind, freedom to recreate themselves despite their past, despite being incarcerated. As I watched that segment of the film, it reminded me of the Apostle Peter, sitting in a Roman prison, ostensibly about to be executed. He was physically imprisoned, but spiritually he was free, singing, healing, teaching, true freedom, and Mother, Father, God. Unity has always been about true freedom. It began way back when Myrtle Fillmore discovered that this family history of tuberculosis was not her life sentence. that she had freedom to choose. And she chose not to no longer buy into the belief that all the women in her family got sick and died young. And as she embraced that belief, she experienced healing. She and Charles went on to explore the healing power of prayer and meditation, and a movement that began back in the late 1900s and carries us through today, helping more and more people discover true, deep, profound, and lasting freedom. This personal freedom comes from knowing the truth of our being and living from it. So what is the truth of our being? That we are the offspring of God the good, imbued with a plethora of creative abilities. And as we connect with this truth and the divine empowerment that it holds, we are now free to create our lives. As you might imagine, I've been thinking about this whole concept for the last few weeks, freedom and what it's about as spiritual seekers. I began to get a picture in my mind, and with Deanna and Risa's help, we're going to share. You get a glimpse into my mind, into what I see. I know it's a little scary prospect, but there are some actually pretty cogent thoughts that pop up there, so we're going to share those with you today. Our spiritual journey, what unity is all about, leads to true freedom. And the first step of our spiritual journey is life. And life, for most of us, starts out very much like a candle in the wind. We're going along, doing our thing, dealing with what comes up as best we can. Sometimes we do really well, other times we crash and burn. But we have no idea that there's anything for us to be doing other than muddling through as best we can, getting from day to day. Then somewhere along the line, something wonderful happens. We get introduced to unity or to new thought concepts. The idea that our thoughts affect our life, they affect our experience of life. A lot of us are a little skeptical at first. What do you mean what I think can have an impact on my life? But then we start playing with the idea that our thoughts create our reality. I don't know about you, but I was a little tenuous at first. And every now and then I'd have a little success, tweaking something in my life and making a little more what I wanted, just by focusing my thoughts in a prayerful way. As we embrace that idea, we learn to monitor our thoughts, our words, and our attitudes, because we start to understand that what goes on in here affects everything within us and around us. We might get introduced to affirmative prayer and affirmations. We did a couple affirmations this morning. Every time you see the word affirmation around here at Unity of the Valley, know that what that's saying is, this is an affirming prayer. And so we develop our affirmations. Some of us even go a little crazy and we take our affirmations and we start putting picture boards together to help us visualize what it is we're trying to create in our life, what it is that we truly want to experience in life. We start to embrace those divine qualities, our creative capacities. And we discover that as we're consistent and persistent in monitoring our thoughts, life begins to improve. Now the problem with this is our most tenacious, dedicated human efforts can only get us so far. The ultimate goal, oneness, enlightenment, true freedom, that tends to be elusive for a lot of us. We're looking for that elusive goal, oneness with Mother, Father, God, oneness with each other, oneness with all that is in the world. We might call it enlightenment. You might have a different word for it. Go ahead and plug in the word that works best for you. But when we somehow achieve that state of oneness or enlightenment, that's when we begin to experience true freedom. In other words, we're free to express and be every moment of every day, regardless of what may be going on in our life, regardless of what life may be tossing at us. Peace and serenity become our fallback position all the time. We know that no matter what's going on out there, in here is peace and serenity. In here is joy that can't be abated by what's going on in the world. As we reach that state of oneness, that connection with all that God is, wholeness begins to emerge. Wholeness means healing of our physical body, healing of our mental confusions, healing of our emotional state, healings of our destructive and misleading beliefs. Myrtle Fillmore's story, co-founder of Unity, is a beautiful example of the kind of healing that comes when we know oneness with all that God is. We become free of fear, of pain, of illness. We are free and released from suffering and from our victim thinking. And then there's divine guidance. When we are situated in that place of oneness with all that God is, we know instinctively what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Also, as we're immersed in oneness, we are freed from those self-destructive attitudes and behaviors that we may have learned in our earlier years. And as we're freed from those self-destructive behaviors and attitudes, we become truly self-directed rather than driven by habit or the expectations of others. In unity with God and oneness, we're freed from pain and regret over the past. We're freed from fears about what might loom before us. We are free to be fully present, to live in the now. How does this sound to you? Do you want to experience true freedom all the time? As I was playing with these ideas, I thought, well, how do we bridge the gap? How do we bridge the gap from new thought ideas to this ultimate experience of oneness with God and living in perfect freedom all the time? To bridge the gap, my friends, the bridge is called meditation. Charles Fillmore talks about meditation as we expand our consciousness Christward, as we expand our consciousness to embrace that God within us, what we call the Christ presence in unity. We bring into full realization divine truth, and that includes true freedom. Fillmore goes on to say, in meditation, we are transformed in spirit, soul, and body as our mind is renewed. In other words, Fillmore is saying that in deep, mystical communion or connection with God, we're healed, we're changed, we are empowered, and we are transformed. Does that sound like freedom to you? I think it sounds pretty exciting. Our understandings and our insights expand exponentially. Our positive thoughts and ideas, our affirmations, our pictured goals are empowered. They're supercharged. We hear the voice of God with clarity as we are open on a continual basis to that divine direction. In meditation, we know at the very depths of our being that we are God's exquisite creation, and as such, each and every one of us is brilliant, is loved, is lovable, and valued beyond measure. We begin to experience in meditation freedom in its very truest sense. We experience serenity regardless of what's going on in the world. Our sense of joy and delight in ourselves and all of creation abounds and overflows. The bridge is meditation, especially ascension meditation, that bridges the gap between unity and new thought, ideas, and the experience and connection with oneness with all that God is. Through meditation, we're empowered to bring our affirming, healing, prospering ideas into manifestation in our lives. So, why ascension meditation? In our lesson last week, we learned that in the silence, that mystical moment of quiet, uncluttered by human thought, is where we experience our oneness, our unity with all that God is. The concept actually is really simple. The challenge, however, generally seems to be quieting our mind, at least long enough to experience the silence. And when we do, so often, it's just a brief experience. There are lots of approaches to meditation. I recently filled out a form about what kinds of meditation I practiced. And it was interesting as I began to list them, how many different methods of meditation I've worked with over the years. How many of you have worked with 2 or more methods of meditation? How about 4 or more? 5 or more? There are all kinds of ways to meditate, aren't there? And I'm not going to say that any is wrong. Everything that we do that moves us into that state of oneness, that innate connection with all that God is, will bless us. But I've tried so many different kinds of meditation, and I've switched them up, and I've changed them up, and I've tried one for a while, and then gone to a little different approach. And what it kind of boiled down to for me is, you know what? This is kind of sort of working, but nothing was giving me the permanent, in-depth, ongoing results that I really, truly desired. I could see change in my life, I could see improvement, but there was this thought niggling in the back of my mind, Laurie, there's more. There is more. And I grappled with this thought for probably about 7 years now. I sought out a yogi, somebody who'd learned to meditate in the Orient and brought those ideas back to the US. I figured, well, yogi's got to have all the answers. And after a couple meetings with this individual and some wonderful conversation about meditation, I was all ready to sign up and do a whole intensive on teach me how to meditate at depth. And he looked at me, he said, well, just keep doing what you're doing. That didn't work for me. That did not work because my heart was telling me, my spirit was telling me, there is something more. Now, I am thrilled to share with you that I discovered that something more in a meditation protocol called Ascension. Ascension is a 2,000-year-old approach to meditation that satisfies our busy, chattery minds by giving them a very simple sentence to focus on that leads to that coveted experience called the silence. And in that silence is where true freedom emerges. I've practiced meditation in different shapes and forms over 30 years. I have studied it with notable unity leaders and teachers. I've taught meditation classes myself. If you walk into my home and look at one of my bookshelves, because there are several, I compete with the bookstore out here. I have a whole shelf of books on meditation. And yet, with all of this background, all of this experience, I discovered an ease and a depth of reaching that quiet place, that silent place in the ascension practice of meditation that up until now I had only ever so briefly brushed in my own efforts. Because it's so simple, because it is so effective, that's why I'm excited to share it with all of you. So please take a look at the bulletin, the Weekly Buzz, the website. You'll find all the information about the film that talks about the results of working with Ascension Meditation. You'll find all the information you need for the 5-week series that is beginning Wednesday, July 12th. In fact, there's an insert in your bulletin that spells it all out for you. True freedom. When we are enlightened, we do not react, we act. Free from self-destructive behavior patterns, beliefs, and judgments, we act. Creating flawlessly from the direct perception of the need for the moment. This is freedom. This is impeccably correct action. This is life in the present instant. The mind is no longer caught by regret for past or worry for the future. What do you have to lose by the thought that perhaps there might be a better way of living your life that can generate a continual experience of joy, brilliance, creativity, health, and love? If you could have this, would you want it? This is true freedom. So let's take a deep breath and relax as we move from our heads to our hearts and take in these ideas in our time here this morning of meditation. Take a deep breath, and as you exhale, let go of whatever cares or concerns or thoughts or plans might be on your mind. They'll be waiting for you later. Don't worry, they won't be lost. But this is that sacred moment when we clear the decks and open our minds and our hearts to connect and experience all that Mother, Father, God is. Relax. Focus within. And hold the thought, I am one with God in the silence. one with all that God is, one with Mother, Father, God, one with that exquisite creative power that gave us the universes, that gave us this world, that gave us life. One with God, we are empowered. We are deeply grateful for the freedoms we enjoy in this country and celebrate and honor this weekend. We are deeply grateful for the ultimate experience of freedom that we experience in our sacred connection with Mother, Father, God. So it is, and so we let it be. As we now gently bring our awareness to this time and space, this beautiful unity of the Valley community on this 4th of July weekend, as we join together in our meditation song.